There comes a time in life when you're standing at the crossroads of faith and fear, and the weight of your situation is trying to crush you. You've prayed, you've believed, you've cried out to God, but nothing seems to change. And in that moment, the enemy whispers, "Where is your God now?" But I came to tell you, this is where faith is built. Faith is not developed in times of ease. It's strengthened in the fire. Anybody can believe when the bank account is full, when the marriage is strong, when the doors swing open without resistance. But real faith, mountain-moving faith, unshakable faith, is born in the struggle. Faith is not built in comfort. It is forged in the fire of trials. It is in the heat of adversity, in the struggle, in the uncertainty that faith either crumbles or strengthens. Anyone can believe when life is easy, when the doors swing open effortlessly, when prayers are answered before they even leave your lips. But real faith, the kind that moves mountains, the kind that sustains you when everything around you is shaking, that faith is born in the fire. When you are thrown into situations that test every fiber of your being, when you are faced with battles you never saw coming, that is where faith is developed. It is one thing to read about faith, to hear sermons about trusting God, but it is another thing entirely to stand in the middle of chaos and declare, "I will not be moved." That kind of faith does not come from comfort. It comes from surviving what should have destroyed you. Look at the story of the 3 Hebrew boys who were thrown into the fiery furnace. They did not develop their faith in the palace, they built it in the fire. They had every reason to bow, to compromise, to avoid the flames, but they stood firm. And when they were thrown into the fire, the very thing that was supposed to consume them only freed them. The ropes that bound them were burned away, but they remained untouched. That is what faith in the furnace does. It does not just sustain you, it sets you free. Some of the greatest testimonies do not come from people who avoided the fire, but from those who walked through it and came out stronger. The enemy wants you to believe that the fire is there to break you, but God allows it to build you. Every trial, every disappointment, every unexpected turn is an opportunity to develop a faith that cannot be shaken. If you never had to trust God for provision, how would you know He is a provider? If you never faced sickness, how would you know He is a healer? If you never walked through darkness, how would you know He is the light? Faith is not tested in moments of ease. It is tested when you have every reason to give up, when nothing makes sense, when your prayers seem to go unanswered, when the pressure is overwhelming. That is when faith is refined, when it is purified, when it grows. And the more you go through, the stronger you become. The same fire that melts wax also hardens clay. It is not about the fire itself, but about what you are made of. You may be in the fire right now, but do not despise it. This fire is not your end, it is your process. It is shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you. You are not being burned, you are being built. Faith is growing in the very place the enemy thought it would die. Waiting is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you are believing for something that feels long overdue. You pray, you fast, you declare, but nothing seems to move. The temptation in the waiting is to believe that silence means rejection, that God's delay means God's denial, but just because He has not moved yet does not mean He is not going to move. His timing is not our timing, and His ways are not our way. What feels like a delay to you is often divine preparation. When God makes a promise, He does not always fulfill it immediately. He allows time to shape you, to strengthen you, to prepare you for what He has in store. Look at God promised him a son, but years passed before Isaac was born. Sarah laughed because she thought it was too late, but God was not late. He was right on time. Delay does not mean denial, it means development. God is working on something greater than what you can see right now. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but before he ever reached the palace, he found himself in a pit, in slavery, in prison. He could have thought God had forgotten him, that the dreams he once had were nothing more than fantasies. But the delay was part of the process. If Joseph had gone straight from the dream to the throne, he would not have been ready. The pit prepared him. The prison shaped him. Every delay was positioning him. And when the time came, he did not just step into the palace, he stepped into his purpose. Some of the greatest things God does in your life will come after a season of waiting. The delay is not to discourage you, it is to equip you. If God gave it to you too soon, you might mishandle it. If he answered every prayer the moment you asked, you would never develop the strength to trust him when things do not go as planned. Faith is not just believing when the answer comes quickly. Faith is holding on when there's no sign of movement. Faith is declaring, I trust you, God, even when everything in you is wondering, why is this taking so long? God's delay is often his way of making sure that what he gives you does not destroy you. Some doors do not open because he knows you are not ready to walk through them yet. Some prayers do not get answered immediately because he knows there is something better ahead. If he gave you everything you asked for when you wanted it, you might settle for less than what he actually has for you. So do not mistake the wait for a no. It may not be happening as quickly as you expected, but if God said it, he will do it. His word does not return void. The delay is not a sign of his absence. It is a sign that he is still working. Hold on, because in due season, he will move, and when he does, it will be greater than anything you imagine. In every struggle you face, there is purpose. It may not make sense in the moment, and it may feel like you are being weighed down, but God never allows you to go through something without a reason. The pain you are experiencing, the obstacles in your path, and the challenges you are battling are not there by accident. They are part of a divine plan that is unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. When you go through struggles, you often wonder, why me, why now? But the truth is, struggles do not come to destroy you. They come to refine you, to build you, to prepare you for what God has ahead. Think about gold. Gold must go through the fire to be purified. The fire does not destroy the gold, it refines it. It makes it stronger, shinier, and more valuable. Your struggle is like that fire. It is refining your character, strengthening your spirit, and shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. If everything in life was easy, if you never faced hardships, how would you grow? Growth happens in the struggle. It is when you are pressed on all sides, when you are pushed to your limits, that you discover what you are really made of. It is easy to talk about faith when life is good, but the true test of your faith comes when life is hard. Your faith becomes real when you have no choice but to rely on God, when the situation seems impossible, but you still believe that God will make a way. Sometimes the struggle is not just about you, it is about the people who will witness your journey. Your victory will inspire others who are walking through their own battles. When you come through the fire, when you rise from the ashes, you will be able to encourage others with the strength and wisdom you gain from your own experience. You will be able to say, I was in the same place you are, but God brought me through, and he will bring you through too. You may feel like giving up, like you have had enough, but remember that the struggle is part of your story. It is not your end, it is your preparation. God uses your pain to create your purpose. The things that have tried to break you are the things that will build you. Every tear you shed, every night you spend wondering if you'll ever make it through is not wasted. It is all part of the process. What you are going through now is shaping you for the future that God has planned for you. It is building your resilience, teaching you patience, and deepening your trust in Him. The very struggle that feels like it will destroy you is the very thing that is positioning you for greater things. You may not understand it today, but one day you will look back and see that everything you went through had a purpose. It was not meant to break you. It was meant to build you into the person you are called to be. There are moments in life when it's easy to forget where you've come from, especially when you're focused on what lies ahead. But when doubt begins to creep in, when the road feels too hard, or when you start questioning whether you can make it through, it's important to pause and reflect on where God has already brought you from. Think about your past, the times you thought you couldn't go any further, the moments when you were on the brink of giving up. Reflect on the situations that seemed impossible, the struggles that felt insurmountable, and the challenges that tried to break your spirit. Yet here you are. You're still standing, still moving forward. That is not by your own strength, but by God's grace and faithfulness. If He brought you through then, He will bring you through now. When you take a moment to look back, you see the hand of God in every part of your journey. Maybe you've experienced heartbreak, rejection, loss, or failure, but you're still here. You didn't stay down. You didn't let the trials consume you. Through every storm, God carried you. And in those times when you thought you were alone, He was right beside you, strengthening you, guiding you, and preparing you for what was to come. Look at how far you've come. You've overcome obstacles that once seemed like walls too high to climb. You've survived battles that left you feeling wounded, but you didn't let those wounds define you. You've come through situations where you didn't know how you'd make it, but somehow by God's grace, you did. Now, you're standing stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever. It's easy to focus on what you don't have, what you're still waiting for, or what hasn't happened yet. But when you look back at where God has brought you from, you'll see that He has been with you every step of the way. The doors He has opened, the prayers He has answered, the ways He has provided, they are all proof that He is faithful. When you remember where you were and how far you've come, you are reminded that the same God who brought you through yesterday's struggles will bring you through today's challenges. You are not here by accident. You are here because God has been with you through it all. Take a moment to celebrate the victories you've had, no matter how small they may seem. Every step forward is a testament to God's faithfulness. You've come from a place of struggle to a place of strength, from a place of fear to a place of faith. Every battle you've won, every obstacle you've overcome is a reminder that with God, nothing is impossible. Look at where He brought you from. Remember the times when you thought it was over, but God made a way. You're living proof that He can do anything. If He did it before, He will do it again. Let that truth stir up a fresh confidence and trust in your heart. The same God who brought you through yesterday will see you through today and lead you into a brighter tomorrow. Faith is not simply a belief, it's a force that propels you into action. It is easy to talk about faith, to say that you trust God, but true faith is demonstrated through what you do, not just what you say. You can declare that you believe God is a provider, but your actions show whether or not you actually trust that He will provide. Faith that moves mountains is the faith that refuses to sit still and wait for things to happen. It is the faith that gets up and moves toward what God has promised, even when it seems impossible. When the Israelites were facing the Red Sea, it wasn't enough for them to just cry out to God. God told Moses to stretch out his rod, to take action, to do something that required faith. It was only when they obeyed and stepped into the water that the miracle happened. The sea didn't part until they took the first step. This is the principle of faith. You must act on what you believe. When God speaks, faith requires you to move in alignment with his word, even when the way forward looks uncertain. The Bible says that faith without works is dead. That means if you truly believe that God has a plan for your life, if you truly believe that he will provide, if you truly believe that he has called you to something greater, your actions must align with that belief. You can't wait for things to magically fall into place. You have to step out and take the first step, even when you don't have all the answers. Look at the woman with the issue of blood. She had spent years suffering, and according to the law, she was considered unclean, unable to approach anyone, let alone touch Jesus. But when she heard that Jesus was near, she didn't wait for permission. She acted on her faith. She reached out, pushed through the crowd, and touched the hem of his garment. Her faith was not passive, it was active, and it was that action that brought about her healing. Jesus didn't just heal her because of her belief. He healed her because her belief prompted her to move in faith. When you step out in faith, you are declaring that you trust God, that you believe his word is true, and that you are willing to risk everything to follow his direction. It is one thing to believe that God can open doors, but it's another thing to walk toward them with the confidence that he will do so. Faith requires movement. You have to move in the direction of your promise, even if it doesn't look like the way is clear. Faith is not a passive hope. It is an active pursuit. It is not enough to pray and believe for change if you are unwilling to change yourself. It's not enough to trust that God will provide if you are not willing to work, to put in the effort to align your actions with his will. Faith requires action. Action that is rooted in trust, obedience, and belief that God will meet you at the point of your willingness to move. If you want to see the fulfillment of God's promises, you must first take the step of faith. Only then will you experience the miracles he has waiting for you. In the midst of uncertainty, when everything around you feels chaotic, when the storms of life are howling and the waves seem ready to overtake you, it's easy to forget one simple truth: God is still in control. No matter how much things feel out of your hands, no matter how many things seem to be falling apart, God is still seated on his throne, and he has not lost control of your life. We often try to control our circumstances, to plan every step, to organize every detail, but we forget that there is only so much we can do. In moments of crisis, when things seem impossible, it can feel as though we are powerless, that we have no way of making things right. But God, in his sovereignty, is never caught off guard. He is not surprised by the challenges you face, and he is not overwhelmed by the struggles you endure. He is still the creator of the universe, still the one who commands the winds and the waves, and still the one who has the final say. When life throws you curveballs, it is easy to question where God is, to wonder if he's forgotten you or if he's left you to handle things on your own. But that is a lie from the enemy. God is right there with you in the midst of your trials, and his control is not determined by what you can see in the natural. He works in ways that are beyond our understanding, and sometimes he allows us to go through difficult times, not because he is absent, but because he is preparing us for something greater. The children of Israel were in slavery for years, crying out for deliverance. Their situation seemed